Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to film my April update for my shop My Shadows. So I'm going to talk about eyeshadows I have used in April, what I have decided to do with them, if I'm going to declutter anything, what I'm going to keep, and then I'm letting you know which eyeshadows I will be using in May. First I want to say that I haven't filmed in this setup for a while. Today I decided to film like this because I'm running out of natural light soon. The sun is slowly starting to set. Usually I prefer to film earlier during the day and I like to use the natural light as my light, but it's always not possible. So yeah, today I'm filming kinda like in my winter setup when I don't have that much of light. But yeah, let's get to the shadows that I have been using in April. So first I want to mention my palette really quickly. I already filmed my finale for this one, but it is something I have been using in April. But now it is time for me to say goodbye. I did use in April one shadow up from the palette. It was the gold eyeshadow. And by the way, something I want to mention right now is that usually gold and champagne eyeshadows are something I gravitate towards a lot, and they are something I like to wear all over my lid, but this month I didn't have them that much in my rotation. So actually what I did multiple times in April was that I used these highlighters from my Painted Face palette, which is the Viva La Diva Dream Cheeks Blush and Highlighter palette. So I used the highlighters as my lid shades and I think they worked very well. Well, I had to wet them, they really didn't work without wetting them, but anyways they looked beautiful. So yeah, that's something I have been doing. Then a palette that I'm going to mention really quickly is this BH Cosmetics Modern Match Eyeshadow palette. I gave myself 3 months time to use this palette and to use all of the shadows from this palette. So March, April and May. So there is one more month to go with this one, and then in my May Shop My Shadows update video I will let you know what I think about this palette and give my mini review. So yeah. If I remember correctly, when I filmed my March update for my Shop My Shadows, I had used 10 eyeshadows from this palette. And now there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eyeshadows that I have not used. So that means that I have used 13 more eyeshadows from this palette in April. Actually, this one was the palette that I did reach for if I needed matte neutrals. With this palette, by the way, I filmed a palette Pingo in April, so I will link that down below if you want to see it. Okay, let's move on. I did pick in April some loose eyeshadows for my rotation. I do have them over here in this small plate. I do have here 5 loose eyeshadows from indie brands. 3 of these are free samples and 2 of them are eyeshadows from Aromaleigh that I own only 1 eyeshadow from a certain collection. The rest of the year, when I'm going to put loose eyeshadows to my Shop My Shadows, I'm going to put all of the eyeshadows I have from a certain collection, but these were kinda like random loose eyeshadows I had in my collection. I have talked about this before, but in 2018 I started to collect loose eyeshadows because I think indie brands are doing so cool themed loose eyeshadows. But I really didn't know if I even like loose eyeshadows, like if I like to use them on my routine, and that is one reason why it's so good for me to do both my no-buy, so that I will not buy loose eyeshadows before I know if I like them or if I want to really have them in my collection, and 2, my Shop My Shadows, so I actually will use everything. So I did use all of these loose eyeshadows in April. I think I used all of them only once, and I still have not formed my opinion of loose eyeshadows, like if they are something I want to buy in future. I need to use some of my other loose eyeshadows later this year. I'm going to declutter 3 of these and 2 I am going to keep. The ones that I am going to declutter are free samples from indie brands. Indie brands very often do send free eyeshadow samples in a smaller jar when you place an order to their website. I do think it is like a nice gift for their customers. However, for me, because I'm trying to curate my makeup collection, they are not bad eyeshadows, but they are just not something I really wanted for my collection. One of these is actually really unique to my collection, but it's not something I really do like. But the two other colors are something I for sure have already in my collection. I truly do appreciate what indie brands are doing. I'm just like the wrong customer to send free stuff for. If I'm not ready to pay for it, I don't need it in the first place. But my biggest issue with these free samples is that they come in jars without a sifter, and I think these are so messy. I'm always so worried that I'm going to just, knock over the whole jar and then there will be eyeshadow all over the place. That is the biggest reason why I am going to declutter these three, but also, as I said, I really didn't want this in the first place. But let me go through this very quickly. I do have two samples from Aromaleigh. The first one is in the shade Clustered Gleaming. This one was from a collection that was inspired by posts that were inspired by months. This is just like a basic shimmery brown. I think this line is now discontinued, so I couldn't find even like proper shade descriptions, but it is like a basic shimmery brown. I think it is a beautiful brown, but honestly at this point I do have so many shimmery browns in my collection that I just don't want to keep this. Then I do have another one from Aromaleigh. This is Ryder. This is from a collection that is inspired by different weird animals and creatures. This one is actually really unique to my collection. I do not have anything like this. However, I'm not the biggest fan of this color. It is just not that much of my thing. I actually did wear this one on a video. It was the March replacements haul that I did, and I got some compliments, but yeah, it's just not something I would ever reach for. It is like a weird kind of like purplish grey with some green glitter. This one looks, in my opinion, in real life very different what it looks like on Aromaleigh website. Okay, I actually did look up the description for this shade. It's got a blue-grey base with a purplish shift and 10 bright sparks and yellow to green shimmer. So with that description I do agree with. Then I do have one more free sample here. So this one is the shade Winona Ryder's Tears from Brija Cosmetics. And this one is described as shimmery bright turquoise blue. So here it is. I really do think that it is a beautiful color, but the thing is that I do have these in my collection in formats that I do like more. For example, I do have the Pegasus from Makeup Geek, that is like a single pan, and yeah, I would way rather reach for that than something like this. But it is a beautiful color. Okay, so those are actually the only three eyeshadows that I'm going to declutter this month. The rest I'm going to keep. So I decided to keep two loose eyeshadows from Aromaleigh that are full size and they are in packaging with sifter. So this one here is Sultry Bloom. So as you can see, it does have shifter, so it is so much easier for me to use. I don't need to be so careful when I'm opening the jar. This one is the shade Sultry Bloom and it is from the same collection than the shade Clustered Gleaming. This one I bought full size because it was inspired by a poem that was inspired by a month of June, and June is my birth month. This is what it looks like. This is now discontinued and I wasn't able to find a description for the shade, but it is like a light pink eyeshadow. It does have some bright light green sparkles in it. I do have one more loose eyeshadow from Aromaleigh to talk about. This one is from a collection I'm sorry, I probably cannot pronounce this right. I believe this one is in Latin and I do not speak Latin at all, but it is from their collection Ignis Antiguita. And this collection is inspired by women in history that are often forgotten. I believe this lady here that this eyeshadow is inspired by is no longer as forgotten, and thanks to that goes to TV series Vikings. So this eyeshadow is called Lagertha and I really do love Lagertha. I must say that with Vikings I kinda like lost my interest with the TV series after season 3 and I have not watched the new seasons. I just think it went a little bit boring. But anyways, Lagertha is like one of my favorite characters from the TV series. I love strong women like that. So yeah, this is what the eyeshadow looks like. It is like a coppery eyeshadow and it is also described as a deep, smooth copper with a very intense chrome effect of chartreuse. I don't know what that word is. I have never heard green and gold. For me it is like a beautiful shimmery copper, like that's all I can say. I do like the color, I do love Lagertha, so I am going to keep this eyeshadow. Then I do have two palettes still left that I had in my Shop My Shadows rotation in April. So first one is like a smaller palette. This is the BH Cosmetics Neutral Eyes to Go 6 color eyeshadow palettes. This one was something that in the March update and in the beginning of April I wasn't quite sure what I want to do with this one, because I mainly want to keep eyeshadows I truly love, but then there are some eyeshadows that are just nice in my opinion, that are something I could live without, but that are still like nice to use. This is exactly that kind of palette. So first I actually was thinking of decluttering it, but I did change my mind just a couple of days ago and I decided to keep this. There is one matte eyeshadow, the middle shade in the bottom row, and it is actually pretty unique to my collection. I do have eyeshadows that are similar but not the same. It is like a mustardy brown and I don't have these so much in my collection and I do think these do look beautiful. So that was like the one shade that I really wanted to keep from the palette. Then the rest of the eyeshadows are satin shadows and I do think that they are nice. Most of the times when I go for shimmery eyeshadows I want to go like all foiled and metallic, but satin eyeshadows are beautiful and I do think that they are very everyday appropriate and very easy and effortless. So I decided to keep this palette. It's for sure something that I can still get some more use out of. Actually, I do have some plans for this palette, so stay tuned for my next video if you want to know what they are. Okay, then there is only my main eyeshadow palette of the month left, and this one I am wearing today. So my main eyeshadow palette for the month of April was this Juvia's Place Douce eyeshadow palette. I do have 4 eyeshadow palettes from Juvia's Place, and well, one of them I have not used yet. It is the Masquerade palette that I bought in late 2018, and I think it's such a summery palette that I still haven't put it to my rotation. But from the 4 palettes that I own from Juvia's Place, this one is hands down my least favorite. I know it is many people's favorite palette, but the thing is that this color story is just not that much my thing. It's really light, it's really pastel-y I think, and I think it's really spring appropriate, so I think April was a perfect time of year, the perfect month to wear this eyeshadow palette. Today I am wearing this pink eyeshadow on my lid, then I am wearing as the matte eyeshadows this light beige eyeshadow and this deeper brown. And I do really love my look. I have nothing to complain about the look, but I just think that this color story is like a little bit random, and I feel that is the case with many Juvia's Place palettes, that I just cannot get that many looks from the palettes. And maybe it is just that I don't go for really unexpected color combinations. Like, I know that many people love to combine, for example, this purple eyeshadow with this green and then throw some pink there. But I don't really do that kind of color combinations. I do love some color once in a while, but usually if I go for color in my eye look, I like to pair it with something neutral, or then I like to keep it kind of like monochromatic. For example, purple eyeshadow is not my favorite, but sometimes I reach for it, and most of the times I do enjoy the look. But if I go for purple, usually I like to keep it like monochromatic. Like, I want to wear like purple crease and purple lid, or maybe like brown crease and purple lid. But I just personally am not there yet where I would do really wild color combinations with my eyeshadows. I just don't feel myself in that kind of looks. I do love colorful eyeshadows once in a while, but I still kinda do want to do it with my own rules. I think with this palette the color story is a little bit random, and I think there are colors that don't really go that well together with the rest of the palette. Especially this shade Crepes over here. It is like this matte reddish brown, and I just think it's so weird. It doesn't, at least in my opinion, go that well with the rest of the shadows. I actually did watch some tutorials for this palette because I really needed some inspiration, and yeah, I guess people were able to make this eyeshadow work with the other eyeshadows, but it's just not my style. Like, this eyeshadow is something I might combine like with a gold or with a copper or with something like that. I personally wouldn't combine it with cool toned shimmery eyeshadows that these are. Like, all of these shimmers in this palette are more or less cool toned. So yeah, it's not a palette I really love, and to be honest, I would like to depot this palette, but I'm not going to depot this today. Reason being is that my C palette is so full that I do not have enough room here. So this is what my C palette looks like right now. I do have here the eyeshadows I have kept from my Bybel Meet Matte palettes, and then I do have here some depotted eyeshadows, also some Makeup Geek shingles. Actually, C palette or another magnetic palette is something that I can buy during my no buy year if I so choose, if I really do need space for eyeshadows. And I actually might pick from Beauty Bay another C palette and make one palette for matte eyeshadows and one for shimmers. So I actually do think that I will get a C palette and I will depot it. And it is not even for the fact that, you know, I don't like the eyeshadows. I do like some of the eyeshadows a lot as singles, but I just don't like all of the eyeshadows. And I do not like the color story. Some eyeshadows that I know for sure that I'm going to keep are like this mint green eyeshadow macarons, this pink eyeshadow puffs, and also this silver eyeshadow Mont Blanc. It is not the best silver ever. Like, it will look beautiful if you use some setting spray, but those eyeshadows I would keep for sure, and then maybe some mattes too. This eyeshadow I wouldn't keep. It is like a duochrome eyeshadow. It's maybe a little bit unpopular opinion, but I do not like duochrome eyeshadows that much on my shelf. It is like a light pink shade with some purple shift to it, and it's just not my style really to wear duochromes. I think I forgot to mention that I do love Juvia's Place formula. I find that the shimmers in this palette are a little bit inconsistent, like with the Tarte and with the Mont Blanc. I really do need to dig my brush there and use some setting spray, but macarons is amazing, buffs is amazing, and Juvia's Place matte formula is probably my favorite matte formula. It's so blendable, it's so pigmented, easy to work with. I have nothing to complain about that, but the color stories that the brand has for their palettes, they are just too challenging for myself. But I still do really much love the brand. If I didn't love the brand and their quality, obviously I wouldn't have bought 4 eyeshadow palettes from them. And there are other palettes that I have, especially the Nubian 2 eyeshadow palette, I absolutely love. It's like right up my alley, that color story. But this one is just not my type of colors that much. Okay, so from the eyeshadows that I did have in April in my Shop My Shadows rotation, I only decided to declutter the 3 free indie samples and also the 3 remaining shadows from my BH Cosmetics Carli Bybel palette. Maybe I will depot the Juvia's Place palette, but yeah, it's not time to think about that yet. But let's go through the eyeshadows that I'm going to be using in May. So I will still keep in my rotation the BH Cosmetics Modern Matte palette that I showed you earlier, and there is still 5 eyeshadows I will need to use. But then I do have over here the eyeshadows that I have picked for the month of May. So let's start from the interesting indie collection, and these are Lush eyeshadows. This is from the brand Geek Cosmetics and it is their Win or Die collection. So obviously the collection is inspired by Game of Thrones. The reason I decided to pick this right now is that the final season for Game of Thrones has started. There is not that many episodes left anymore, like the series will be over in the end of May, so of course it is really appropriate to pick this one right now to my rotation. Then I decided to pick this Pacifica Solar palette to my rotation in May. Reason being is that I do want to depot this palette. I think it is bulky and I do not like everything what is going on here. There are, for example, 3 cream highlighters. I never use them, I just want them out of my life. Then there is 1 blush and 1 bronzer. Those I do like, so I will probably keep them, or I know I will keep them. But then the eyeshadows are something I need to make my mind about. I may keep only one of them, to be honest. This shade here, it is called Treasure and it is like a beautiful bronze eyeshadow. The rest of the shades, I don't think they are that good quality. Like this yellow gold, it's a beautiful color but it's not really impressive how it's performing. Then this turquoise shade, I do have so much better turquoise in my collection. Like, can you see that yellow gold? It doesn't even like swatch at all. But yeah, this one I know already that I'm going to depot and I want to do it as soon as possible. So that is why I decided to pick it for my Shop My Shadows rotation in May. This is going to be totally like off track, but I was able to open the curtains, blinds, because it is now darker, so the light from the outside doesn't really change that much of the lighting of the video. Anyways, I don't know if you can see it, but the birches are making leaves. This is always the best part of the year, or one of the best parts of the year. I feel this year spring just came all of a sudden. Last year it was the same thing, but the year before last year we got leaves maybe like in the mid part of May. Like it was still snowing in May. I remember it was such a cold spring, but now it has been warm and so sunny. I'm so happy that the summer is coming. But anyway, let's talk about my main palette for the month of May. This palette that I chose is one of my favorite palettes from my collection, and if you asked me today if I could keep only one palette from my collection, I would keep this one because it is so versatile and I absolutely love it. So this is the BH Cosmetics Carli Bybel Deluxe Edition palette, and I have missed this palette so much. I don't think I have used this a single time since I started my Pant palette with my original BH Cosmetics Carli Bybel palette in April 2018. So I have actually missed this palette, and I knew it like in the very beginning of the year that the main eyeshadow palette of the month of May will be this one. I do think that the color story of this is really seasonally appropriate to springtime. Like there is one row of warm eyeshadows like peachy eyeshadows, there is one pinky eyeshadow, then there is one more cool toned plummy row, and then there is one neutral row. Then there are also 6 highlighters here. And yeah, it's just one of my most favorite palettes ever. I so much do enjoy the color story, and I will for sure be able to mix some of the rows and get some really nice and inspiring makeup looks. So yeah, I'm excited to be using this palette. But yeah, that was everything for today. Thank you so much for watching this video and see you in my next one. Bye bye!